So shadow work or self-inquiry, which is best and which is going to get you there faster? Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Amy and welcome to my channel. Here we discuss spirituality and psychology so that you can manifest a relationship of your dreams. In my last video, I discussed what my personal spiritual journey was, and it was a small introduction to non-duality teachings. In today's video, I'm going to discuss the two main methods that are taught so that you can actually start to experience your true nature. And I'm going to discuss shadow work and self-inquiry because they're two very different schools of thought, and I think people get confused over which one to use, which one's best, which one gets me there quicker. Do I need to heal or don't I need to heal and just believe that I'm God and that I'm the universe and that everything's connected and that all of my desires are mine? So let's dive into this, because this is a topic that I think there's a lot of disagreement on, because the way I look at this is that the shadow work is more of the feminine approach, and the self-inquiry, I would say, is a more masculine approach. But what I use is both of them. And I'll explain what I mean in a moment, but there isn't really any right way. There isn't any way that's going to get you there quicker, and people are free to use whichever technique that they want to use. So the way I like to imagine this is, imagine you've got a bathtub and the plug's out of the bathtub. So the feminine is actually turning the taps on and letting the water run into the bath and out of the plug. And when we imagine the water, I want you to imagine your trauma, your feelings, your trapped feelings inside your body. And this is what the feminine approach does. The feminine approach releases the emotions so that they can be processed and released out of the body. So the actual turning the tap on, the water's the emotion. Now the masculine, so the self-inquiry side, is the one that turns the taps off. So this is how both teachings can actually link together, because I've tried both approaches, and what my experience has been, it might not be yours. You don't have to take, what I'm saying, this is just my own experience, is that if you focus 100% on the feminine, shadow work, trauma healing, and actually focus 100% on that, it can cause you to be stuck in a cycle of healing. And this is problematic because we actually lose touch with our external world. We actually start to retreat internally so that we get stuck in this healing cycle, hoping that we're going to achieve enlightenment. However, the good part, the pros of doing the shadow work, are that you can release a trauma that has been holding you back for years very, very quickly. So it's almost like the shadow work or the feminine approach actually uproots the trauma and heals it fairly quickly. This approach can be really, really beneficial in certain circumstances. So let's say, for example, if you've got a history of trauma around abuse, for example, this is the method that's really going to help you, because it's actually making you face your trauma so that you can actually transform it so that it works for you. The masculine approach, which is self-inquiry, which is disidentification with the trauma in the first place. So the actual masculine approach causes you to actually disidentify with that trauma, which in certain circumstances, this can be helpful. But if you have a deep-seated trauma that is continuing to come up, it's continuing to cause you to react in certain ways or have certain beliefs, the masculine method is almost like death by 1,000 cuts. Because when it comes up, you're just disidentifying with it. You're not healing anything. You are just continuing to disidentify with it. And this process is a long process if you have a trauma that's really affected you. So that's why I like to use both approaches, because certain things that come up, like say something's happened during the day that's made me feel upset or it's made me feel anxiety, then absolutely I'll go for the masculine way. I will absolutely go into self-inquiry. This is my separate self thinking certain things about a certain situation. I've labeled and I have judged a certain situation, so I'm going to remove those judgments so that I can move forward. However, that's incredibly difficult if you have a trauma that's affected you for several years. If you've had a trauma that's affected you in childhood, you are going to have a really difficult time every time that that comes up, just saying to yourself that that's not me, that didn't happen to me. I thought it was me, but it wasn't. And it can cause you to go into denial about that thing. And I don't personally like to do that. I personally like to look at what's happened and release it and transform it so it's something that is beneficial to me. And there are some teachings that will encourage you don't need to heal. And you don't, in order to have what you want, you don't have to heal unless you've found a way to completely bypass the human nervous system. It is going to continue to come up until you actually go into it and heal it. And this is what my experience has been, having tried both. So essentially what I'm saying is that go into it with a balance. Go into it with your toolbox full. Go into it with an open mind, and actually so that you can discern, actually this really bad thing happened to me. Am I just going to say that it wasn't me that it happened to? How do I feel when I think that? How do I feel thinking that didn't happen to me? Does it feel true to me that didn't happen to me? It happened to my small self. Because again, my opinion, that thing, no matter how traumatic, that thing has served you in some way. I've had things that have happened to me in the past, which I haven't been able to actually do the masculine techniques of just observing it and moving on from it. It's not been possible for me, which is why I struggled with just using self-inquiry. And that's how I got into Shadowwork teachings and teachings on how to actually heal trauma as a way to actually transform it and move past it, rather than just denying that it happened to me. And that might initially bring up some confusion because, I certainly thought, well, either I'm God and that didn't happen to me, it happened to who I thought I was, or am I this small self, this human being that does think that this happened to me and that actually feels terrible about it? And to that, I would say that it doesn't have to be an either or. There can be a dichotomy where you can hold both. You can be both. You are both God and human, because ultimately you've got to be able to navigate life on earth. You've got to be able to navigate your certain set feeling sensations. You've got to be able to navigate things that happen to you. You can't just say, okay, I'm just going to observe this and not react to it and understand that this isn't me that it's happening to, because that causes a sort of detachment to what is really going on, and it causes you to live up here dissociated with your humanness and the human body. But then there are certain situations where the masculine is completely the way to go. But essentially you can believe that you're God and do shadow work. You can do both. And when I'm doing shadow work, it is always with the understanding of what my true nature is. It is always with the understanding and compassion for my human self. Whilst the knowing who I am is still there, I can still heal these past traumas so they're not continuing to come up. So I don't have to continue to think, well, that didn't happen to me, when my mind and body certainly believe that it did. So your humanness isn't an obstacle that needs to be overcome. It's not something that you need to get rid of or deny its existence. It's something that you need to work on not identifying with. And self-inquiry, so the masculine, will absolutely certainly help you with that. However, when you have deep trauma, deep past trauma that's affecting you for years, that's really, really triggering, then absolutely shadow work is the way to go. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope it really has explained to you the differences between the two approaches and how they can actually work together. And in my next video, I'm going to explain how this all fits into manifestation. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.